Have you ever wondered what it would be like to work for a massive high-tech corporation in the not-so-far future? Have you ever asked yourself the question, what would it be like to work on a mostly dead celestial body situated on average about 1.5 billion kilometers away from human civilization? No? Well, I played the first few hours of the turn-based RPG Subterrain, Minds of Titan to answer these questions anyway. The game, developed by Pixellore Inc. and published by Indie.io, has a definite focus on atmosphere and immersion, both of which it manages to achieve from the main menu screen onward. Character creation allows you to choose your character's portrait, as well as their occupation, the latter of which decides your starting stats and items. Character progression is open-ended and skill-based. Like Morrowind or Ultima Online of old, you earn experience for skills and attributes you actually use, meaning that your active and passive abilities will depend on how you do in fact play the game. After creating your character, you're allowed to customize your difficulty in a few ways which don't just boil down to lowering or raising numbers. Great, I love it when a game tries to achieve a greater challenge via actual gameplay changes. Once you decided on how demanding you want the game to be, I went with the default settings here, you're treated to a simple but atmospheric mini-prologue briefly explaining the game's premise. The tech corporation had sent a bunch of experts and workers to the surface of Titan for the purpose of resource acquisition. This group managed to establish a colony and gave the moon switches for quite some time, before abruptly vanishing. Tech sent additional people to investigate the first group disappearance. This investigative team suffers major casualties during their investigation, however, and shortly after loses contact with corporate HQ. Now left to fend for themselves in a hostile environment, they manage to locate some of the previous group's assets, which include your character's stasis pod. Not long after waking up, you're greeted by the team's medical staff. From here on out, you're treated to a tutorial skillfully disguised as a prologue. Explanation of game systems are woven well into fundamental world building, dialogue, and early tasks. You can skip this tutorial when starting a new game, but on your first run you should probably go through it, if for nothing but world building alone. It also happens to be fun. Exploration of the moon base, the first mini-dungeon, and later on the main dungeon pulls you right in and keeps you immersed throughout. The music hides itself in the background while acting as one of the major pillars of the tense sci-fi atmosphere. You really do feel like you're exploring caves and facilities on another world. During your expeditions, you will do a lot of looting of cupboards, chests and boxes. To put emphasis on this part, I do mean a lot. This is a big chunk of exploration. Picture the news footage of those riots that sometimes happen because of this or that current thing. Eventually people start looting shops and stores, and the amount of loot you'll drag out of the facility's underbelly will at least match those. Coincidentally, you'll also likely never face consequences for just outright stealing people's stuff. A lot of what you'll grab will be classified as junk, serving the singular purpose of providing you with materials for recycling. You will also gather a pretty assortment of consumable items of varying quality. Helpful things like medkits, antidotes, or food and water. Yes, you will need to look after your character's physical needs like hunger, thirst, and tiredness. Ignoring those will lead to worsening debuffs over time that massively impact your combat prowess. Combat itself is fun and straightforward. Click on or walk into your enemy to attack them with weapons, activate learned abilities to harm them or enhance yourself, and use traps, throwable items and other gadgets to help you emerge victorious. While combat can seem easy, being too reckless and drawing the attention of too many monsters at once can put you in quite the pickle. I didn't give the higher difficulty settings a try, but I imagine you can actually adjust them to the point where exploration and combat become very tense and you'd have to be very deliberate with your choices. You can already see glimpses of this not only in combat, but also with oxygen management and debuffs like poison early on. When you're not rummaging through containers, peppering enemies with bullets, or fracturing your legs in your own traps, As I said, when not doing these things, you'll probably be harvesting one of the myriad of plants or picking away at one of the plentiful ore nodes. Exploration is also the main way of improving your character. As mentioned before, you advance your attributes and skill by use rather than allocation. You do also gain levels by acquiring experience, granting you perk points with which you unlock. What do you unlock with perk points? These perks give you access to stat increases as well as offensive and defensive abilities, passive and active. Sooner or later, your trips into the depths will likely be interrupted by either exhausting your supplies or your bags being full. Managing your inventory will take up a big chunk of playtime. And if you, like me, struggle with letting go of all those old USB cables and adapters that have amassed in your drawers and cupboards, your storage will quickly become filled to the brim with stuff you'll likely never get rid of. But hey, I'm sure that love of low quality bread number 122 will definitely come in handy at some point. Your storage is also automatically organized into different categories, which is mighty helpful. You also won't need to scour your storage for materials when crafting or researching items. Everything in it is available as materials for research, recycling and manufacturing, should it qualify. Crafting is straightforward as well. You are able to research certain marked items to unlock new crafting recipes which provide better gear or consumables. Equipment, found or old, junk and harvested items can be recycled into materials, which, in turn, can be assembled into whatever you have already unlocked via research. Research also allows you to analyze certain raw resources and monster materials, to improve your gathering proficiency or give you combat bonuses against monsters, respectively. All types of crafting take some turns to complete, but don't require your active attention, automatically progressing and completing while you're attending to other duties. These processes do cost credits, however. Credits, which can also be invested into items available at the colony's shop or by bartering with some NPCs. This provides you with the option to buy quite a few of the things you have researched, though I think crafting items tends to be cheaper, especially considering how plentiful resources are, at least early on. Credits seem to be a lot more difficult to accumulate, so I usually pick the crafting option when possible. Another area to invest gathered resources into is the moonbase itself. I can't comment on this much though, since I didn't get to the point where I could afford to do so. It seems like you can increase the efficiency of your colony's various facilities, including manufacturing, to increase your odds of survival. Boss battles are a thing in Subterrain. Towards the end of the introductory quest chain, you are confronted by one of the massively mutated beasts from the mines. The first encounter with one of these more powerful fiends equips you with a pair of training wheels in the form of friendly NPCs, who distract the answer milk long enough for you to kill it. If this fight is any indication, future boss fights will indeed challenge you. Once past this introduction, your chatter with NPCs appears to delve into the underground on its own, while the loop of dungeon delving takes center stage. The game's Steam page advertises the fact that you're not only out for securing company assets, but also to discover the fate of the preceding colonists. So I'm very hopeful that the excellent atmosphere and immersion will continue to be supported by snippets of lore and dialogue. If you're into turn-based RPGs with a focus on stats, number tweaking, survival and inventory management that nevertheless maintains a tight grip on your imagination, Subterrain Mites of Titan might be for you.